last time on Talora Tales. Our heroes, now known as the Ember Four, find themselves in the town of Yevaloon. As they were waking up in the morning and kind of having a powwow session discussing the various bits of information that they had accumulated, the rather charismatic and endearing child, Ava, comes storming into the tavern that they had been sat in, and dumps a kobold corpse on the floor. This spurs on a small conversation between the group and herself, where they more or less bring her into the group and deputize her, however that will turn out. As Ava now tags along with our heroes, they travel westwards towards the farthest homestead from the town, which supposedly is the most frequent place or point of interest for the kobolds coming from the west. It is occupied by a single, recently widowed, grieving elven woman who supposedly refuses to leave her homestead as her husband and son had been slain rather recently. Our party make contact with her and have a small discussion with her, which leads to the ultimate agreement of her plan of luring the kobolds into her barn and then burning it down to the ground. As this plan is set in motion, our heroes construct a rather rudimentary barricade to take cover behind and tear down the kobolds that had been made an example of on the perimeter of her property, hoping that the noise and the media lure of the livestock is enough to bring in the kobolds and cause another attack. Our heroes kind of lurk for the evening, later into night, as they wait and see if their plan bears fruit. It is around 8 or 9 when you all are in position and kind of ready for what is to come. The information that you've gathered so far about the kobolds is they particularly only like to strike at night due to their sensitivity to the sun and also the cover of darkness. So hopefully now would kind of be the time that they are approaching or scoping things out. Braynoon, you had previously, earlier in this day, kind of gone around the field in search of the broken shovel that you mended, and had spied a couple different pit traps that you assume the singular woman left in this farmstead had crafted. They had been full of rather rudimentary spikes and broken glass, so hopefully that might be some sort of early warning system, but currently you all are crouched in your various cubbies or hiding positions, letting the light kind of fade as you are staring in the small, like naturally formed funnel between the house and the barn. The livestock is certainly doing its duty, as all of them now still contained in the barn are making a fair bit of racket and kind of bumbling around, being almost kind of jammed to the brim in there as they're hitting the walls and kind of tipping things over, so enough noise is being made. Quinn, you would be crouched down with Ava, who, as far as you are aware, has been doing this for the past couple days by herself, crouching around in the dark, waiting and lurking for kobolds to show up and then taking some as a prize of sorts. She almost seems excited or in her element to some extent. She is quieted down a fair bit versus the rather talkative girl that you have grown somewhat accustomed to. She wields your short bow as her eyes are kind of trained determinedly between that small gap. I imagine that at this point, is there any last minute preparations that the party would make before potentially an opponent arrives?
Yeah, I think I would like to ritualistically cast Unseen Servant. It lasts for an hour, so I'll just keep that. My intention would be to just keep it active.
Okay, that's concentration, right?
I don't.
No?
No.
Okay.
Uh,
Good to know.
In addition to that, I think Sven would go ahead and ritually cast Comprehend Languages.
Okay.
That'll last an hour, and then go ahead and cast Mage Armor.
Alright.
Yeah, Mage Armor as well for me.
So as the two valiant arcane university students make their preparations as combat becomes rather imminent, everyone roll me a perception check.
You want one for Mr. Sparkles as well?
Sure, go for it.
7.
Oh,
Well,
Another
Right.
9.
I have
Oh.
a 10 and a 7 for sparkles.
Who was the 10?
Me.
Good lord. So as the anticipation of what is to come is kind of buzzing in your ears, all of you feeling that kind of slow rise of adrenaline that is almost kind of intoxicating before some sort of violent interaction takes place, it's somewhat difficult to discern the small noises and motions kind of distantly off to the west, a slow breeze kind of rolling off the mountain and through the corn stalks, kind of making them form this strange kind of rattling wind chime effect. Nothing stands out to any of you in particular as everyone kind of strains. Even Mr. Sparkle's kind of like coming up in between your horns, kind of posing like a pointer hound as his nose is up in the air. But Quinn, as you are crouched down next to Ava, your, I guess, awareness being somewhat obscured by the darkness, you see the, like, actual cloth of the hood around her head, like, flicker, and you can more or less assume that the elves' ears beneath it are kind of twitching and flicking around almost like mini satellite dishes. And as you see them kind of perk up, there's just this small shift where she turns, like, halfway around to kind of catch your eye, and there's this, like, silent bit of communication where she just knocks her head off to the west, indicating that some noise had been heard. But I imagine nothing would spur you at this moment, gentlemen. All right. Give me a moment. Okay.
And we don't really have a way to signal each other, correct?
There were rudimentary hand signs discussed at some point.
And we have an order of operations, because nothing was going to happen until they were in and the doors had been locked, so...
Okay.
So, I guess, Sven, you'd be the only one not currently able to see the scene taking place. Maybe also Brainum, because you're kind of up and around the house. But Thomas and Quinn, you would have clear vision right in front of the porch of the homestead. You would see the small silhouette of a humanoid figure kind of lurking in the darkness, just on the edge of your vision. And you'd see a few other shapes moving with it as a small cluster of very small dragon-like beings are kind of slowly stalking forward. They are leaning up against the building, kind of sniffing the air. One of them takes like 1 or 2 steps up onto the porch and kind of peers into the window. They're all moving with this very deliberate slowness, very much aware of what's going on and trying to gather as much information as possible as they just crawl more and more forward. Eventually, one of them would make it to the door of the barn, and he would kind of cast somewhat of a passing glance over the weird barricade that's been constructed. I'm assuming that you all are kind of ducked down behind it, not just like standing out in obvious view. But the singular kobold kind of moves down to the door. He peers in, again, like a little sniff, and he turns back to his brethren or his peers, who all kind of look a little bit like excited. Their movements kind of becoming instantly more agitated as potentially meat is on the menu. So I think it's Quinn and Sven who know Draconic, am I correct?
I can currently comprehend all languages, but yes.
And I know Draconic as well.
Okay. So is it everyone but Brainy? Alright. So everyone but Brainy. As you are watching them kind of do this almost like silent gesturing to each other, eventually the one kind of farthest in the back that you can't quite even see with your vision yet, you hear him pipe up like,
But, is she here? Here! The Blue Witch! Blue Witch! No! No! It's clear! It's clear! Yes! Yes!
And you would see the one actually at the door begin to kind of like go into the barn, sniffing every step as he goes. You would eventually, I assume, lose track of him in particular as he goes deeper in. Eventually, the other two behind him would do much the same, with one of them kind of standing guard at the actual entrance, just below the lantern that kind of hangs above. And he is clearly looking back behind him off to the west, with some sort of indication that he is communicating or signaling to something off in that direction. But again, at this point, I'm assuming no one has done anything or initiated anything.
Yeah, I'll be looking at between Braynoon and Quinn, looking for a signal to do anything before I do anything.
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of moving things around, so excuse me for brief interruptions.
Taking a moment, Sven will put his wand up against his throat and message over to Braynoon. Well, if they don't all go in, should I try something to lure them? Perhaps a message to them?
Only if you can make it sound like it comes from one of them.
From what I recall, message sounds like a whisper.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I think I can accomplish that.
Do what you need to.
So, Braynoon probably being the furthest off to the west, and I guess the only one not currently able to listen to the conversation taking place, you would hear the sudden, like, crumpling of vegetation and then a sharp yelp, and you would hear the pained cries of some sort of creature, presumably a kobold, due to the kind of screeching noise that it has, erupting into the sky, more or less assuming that one of the pits that had been dug out there has claimed a victim. There is also the distinct sound of rustling off to your west. It is a little bit difficult to discern how far away it might be because there is the corn kind of being navigated through, and then the forest kind of off to your northwest as well. There is the strange noise of what sounds like groaning wood or straining, I guess, like structure, this like kind of warped, twisting, groaning noise for a few seconds that still kind of persists as the rest of you, or I guess all of you, let me make sure I get this right, would see a rather large gathering of these creatures coming in. And I'm going to do a little bit of maneuvering here yet again. Get them all situated in this beautiful tomb. About there. As you watch one after the other of these small creatures kind of scampering in, the ones that follow being a lot more confident and brazen than the initial ones that kind of scouted it out, eventually, amongst their scrambling noises and all the different commotion that they are causing the animals, and they're kind of kicking up a new uproar, you would hear the distinct sound of glass being smashed off to your west. This loud, sharp clattering as the debris caused by it kind of hits the ground. And then Braynoon being very close to the building to your left, or to your right, I suppose, you would hear the sound of, like, scraping, talons on wood, things being crawled over, things being upturned, as you can kind of assume that the building has now been compromised.
I'm going to look over to Quinlan and make a signal to get his attention. And then going through our agreed upon, basically it's a on your mark type of, like, you're the one kicking this off. So, but I would also motion that there's something in the house next to us.
So I think I'm going to start creeping this direction. Along our line here.
Mm-hmm. Throw me stealth.
That is 17.
Okay. as you were kind of like shifting by the shrubbery and then passing by the rather fixated individual that is Lensa, you would see she's almost kind of like hobbling back and forth, this like very agitated, excited energy kind of like all consuming her as her brilliant blue eyes are just kind of fixated forward, the knife in her hand kind of just like doing this weird like mimicking boxing motion as she is amped beyond belief, or at least very enthralled by the scene playing out in front of her, but she would not say anything as you pass by.
I'm not gonna say anything to her either. Don't need to set anything off here. So what I want. All right, I'm gonna move past Sven because I want to see if I can get.
Would you be crossing close enough for Sven to see?
More than likely, I think.
Then also using the message spell, Sven would just say, you know, if you want, I can try and get that last one inside the doors.
How?
Well, message it to just something, you know, moron, get over here and help us. See if it'll at least go in before you run up and have to close them.
All right. Try it when I get close.
Will do.
Do I?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so, quick point of clarification: we did mention that the southern door was kind of locked and barred, where something had been slipped in place. But had anything been put against that further, or is it just a singular implement holding it?
I mean, probably, since we didn't want them breaking out of that, probably would have braced it in some way.
Okay.
Is my thought. Knowing that the north entrance is just going to be the simple bar lock.
Mm-hmm.
Sven would have offered up his rope as a way to tie that door.
Okay. Continue, Quinn.
So do I think if I'm all right, I'm gonna move up to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly like peek around this corner.
Okay. Oh, second, my thing's.
Because I don't want there to be like another group that size
Mm-hmm.
that just hasn't made it inside yet.
Let me see. Okay. Well, actually, this should just work. But yep. 1 second. Technical difficulties. Don't want to do that. All right. Are you able to see that, sir? I cannot tell. Go ahead and move yourself one more token down.
Ah.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
So as you kind of run over to the eastern side of the barn, you are witness to the chaos kind of beginning to rise inside. You would see the kobolds are kind of like leaped up onto the crates, kind of torn a few of them open. They're also beginning to kind of fiddle with the actual latches and locks for the stalls that the animals are in. A few of the animals have already been kind of pestered or pecked at or even chewed on by some of the more excited individuals in there, but it is very quickly devolving into a toy store with a bunch of rabid children inside. As you start moving further south down to the edge, you would hear the sound first of the fence kind of being jumped over, the like kind of soft groan of the wood and the scrambling of feet past it as you take a quick glance around the corner, and you would see in your immediate vision about 3 small silhouettes, but there's also a few shapes behind it that are hard to truly discern, but you can catch a glimpse of.
All right. So I think I want to give it another few moments. I want to see if we can get more of them inside.
Okay.
So behind me, like behind the corner of the barn behind me, I'll just sort of hold a palm up
So as you are waiting there for a moment, you would see the two that you first spotted kind of going up to the door with a little bit of curiosity as another small grouping behind them kind of makes themselves known. As they approach the door, you kind of see them already fussing with the rudimentary lock or barricade that you all have constructed. Some kind of like tugging on whatever wood you kind of lean against the door, as the others like scrambling with the rope. They're not frantically trying to undo it, more just like trying to undo it at a sense of maybe duty or expediency, hoping to get into the barn from the other direction. But that's currently kind of what's taking place, as the rest are, again, keeping like a general eye out, but they're all just kind of more or less invested in getting inside versus keeping an active watch.
I'm gonna back up so I can't be spotted and gesture to Sven.
Yes.
The one that you were gonna message. Tell him there's a lot of stuff in here, we need help carrying it.
Okay, yes. And then kind of focusing his concentration there at the one at the door. And then he'll cast his message over. Hey, you moron, get the rest in here to get these things. Talking in Draconic, trying to, I can't. But, making his voices like gravelly or like nasally is what, trying to mimic what he heard.
Throw me a deception check, sir.
Oh shit, do I have anything that helps this? I don't think I do, no. Okay.
Oh, that's a good base.
A 12.
Okay.
Of average.
I'm assuming you want the reply?
They have the option to, but it just comes through as like a whisper in their ear.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they would, know well enough to think of it as a reply back, or if they would just like shout over their shoulder.
So, as you lean upon your magical abilities and send out your message into the void, feeling kind of connecting to the small creature over to the north, there is this like momentary pause where Brainun and Thomas, you having line of sight on this gentleman, would see it kind of like, and then lean its head through the door and go,
Raspy! Raspy! Raspy, what do you want?
and then he goes barreling into the barn as he assumedly is searching for the source of the whisper.
I think I'll help this along. And so in Draconic, sort of like, so peek one more time, and then sort of through the corner of the barn in Draconic, I'm going to sort of grunt and mutter, ooh, this is good. Eat it before the others get in here.
Okay, throw me a deception check, sir.
That's going to be a 17 plus 7. That's 24.
Okay, and this is just out loud to the entire group?
Through the, in Draconic, like sort of through the corner of the barn.
Okay. As you do your little peek, you get another quick glance at the quickly growing number of individuals on the south side of the barn, ducking back to your little hiding spot and doing your little call out. There is, again, also kind of a moment, like a pause, as you would hear the two kobolds that are more or less next to the door kind of like glancing at each other and kind of shrugging at each other. And then there is a quick growing flurry, commotion, as you hear them kind of attacking the door with a bit more fervor. And you'd also hear or see, I guess, since you can peer through that window to your north, that the like kind of open, almost like it's just like a wooden cross section for the windows are also being messed with or attacked on the western side of the barn. But you would just hear them like scrambling over each other and pulling at the beams, and one has drawn out some sort of implement. You start hearing the sawing of the rope as they're all very invested in getting inside to have the scrumptious num-nums.
Then I'm gonna add in a different pitch, as though it's another kobold. Never mind, the other side's already open. We're gonna miss it.
Give me another deception and a persuasion.
Alright, the deception's 21.
Okay.
And the persuasion is an 18 plus 9, 27.
Good lord. Okay. As you call it again, you would immediately hear a scuffle going on verbally with all of the individuals gathering at the south. There's a,
Get the door, no, go around and fast! Get the door!
and then there is the sound of a multitude of feet kind of running off to the west. Give me a perception check real quick.
Uh, 16?
Okay.
Right?
As you, I would.
No, I'm sorry. That's an 11. Wrong bonus.
Okay. Okay. Let me fix the camera real quick. There we go. As you hear a larger set of footprints or footsteps running off to the west, and also a little bit of more fiddling still at the door, but you can assume it's a far smaller group at this point, there is the sound of quickly approaching commotion kind of coming your way, assumingly the creature's kind of moving east and then to the north. So in a very quick moment, you are about, potentially, probably, going to face something coming around the corner.
Tell me about the outside of this barn, quickly.
Okay,
Briefly.
so there are windows on the eastern and western side that you can see indicated on the map. They are, again, just like a simple cross-section, and the widest gap of that cross-section is maybe like 2 feet by 2 feet. So you could maybe squeeze through, but probably not. Then the actual siding of the barn is what appears to be kind of long, fresh, clean-cut, like timber planks that have been stained or lacquered with some sort of like brown material. The actual wall is probably 10-ish feet tall before it begins to like slope up onto the actual roof of the building.
What about the window, like, framing? Is there any kind of lip to it?
Yeah, there'd be like a square cut out like windowsill that would be there, and then the cross section through that. So there's maybe like a 2-inch divot between like the outside of the wall and the framing of the window, like a little lip.
Alright, I want to use that to help me vault up and grab the edge of the roof and climb on top.
Okay. Go ahead, throw me an athletics and a stealth.
The athletics is 19. The stealth is 20.
Ooh. As you hear the noise growing closer, and there's this quick kind of like jolt through your body, this like electrifying awareness kicking on as like your skin begins to tingle and your focus begins to draw in, you suddenly turn off to the north and you step up onto the sill, and you get one last glance through that window as you're hoisting yourself up, and there's a kobold inside that is like fussing with a crate and hears the like small creak off to his left, and you just see his face tilting ever so slightly as you kind of blur past the window. You're unsure if he really saw anything. There isn't any following shout or cry, so it's probably safe to assume that he didn't actually clarify what it was. As you go vaulting up on the roof, having to hoist yourself on, the roof is a pretty sharp angle. Nothing, probably I'd give you a guess, maybe like 30 degrees, 40 degrees. So you can get up and on it, but it is not a place that you're going to be maneuvering around very easily. So you kind of just lay flat back against the, I guess, the slope. And Sven, I'm going to go ahead and leave you in that spot, but understand that you are up. You would see two kobolds kind of whipping around the edge of the barn, one of them jumping up and over the fence as they then start barreling northward, supposedly trying to get around the barn and back inside. I imagine no one would make a movement or a initiation at this point.
No.
Okay. So to start making this a little bit more manageable, Brainoon, Thomas, and Sparkles, as you all have been kind of patiently waiting, give me another perception check.
$15.
I got a 16 and Sparkle's got an 11.
Okay. Okay. As you see a rather sizable group moving up and around the corner of the barn, going through that funnel between the house and the potentially future burning structure, Thomas, as you are kind of growing more and more concerned as more and more kobolds are becoming present and the number is rapidly increasing, you try to keep an ear and an eye out on the scene around you, especially off to the west and north where there's kind of a potential gap in the defenses or the line that you guys have established. There is the shifting of trees and like the small crackling of twigs being crunched, which could be explained away as small rodents or something of the like, but given the situation, it's just enough to kind of put you on edge and make you a little bit more wary that the open, dark forest beside you or near you is potentially a future problem.
I'll wave over at Brainoon to get his attention and give him the newly acquired hand signals for I heard something that way.
I will acknowledge it, signal back to hold, stay down, and I'm just going to divide my attention between having heard things inside the house and off in that direction in the woods, just kind of my back to the barricade. And
and Sven and Quinn, you are letting the two kobolds pass, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me do a quick. Sven probably being the closest and tracking the kobolds and being semi-aware of the barricade still constructed, you would see the two dragon creatures kind of scampering through the ground. Again, their awareness not being the best because of their attention being so focused. You would see the silhouette of Lensa behind the brush, her cloak kind of obscuring the majority of her figure. You would just see the kind of steady breathing growing more and more rapid to the point it almost looks like she is vibrating as these two kobolds pass with such close proximity. But she does not do any sort of motion to leave her position. But it is very clear that there is just like absolutely barely contained enjoyment kind of just beneath the surface of this scarred individual. But all right. At this point, Quinn, as you are still hidden upon the roof, letting the two kobolds kind of scamper by, you would hear the distinct sound of the rope that had been around the door being cut away and kind of hitting the ground, this kind of wet, coiling smack, I suppose. And now the two individuals down there that you can still hear kind of muttering to each other, being like,
we're gonna get in there much faster. The sound won't even be loaded. Yes.
are maneuvering the beams and the wood out of the way as the situation continues. The larger part of the group would see, again, a sizable grouping of these creatures kind of storming inside with a bit more fervor, beginning to shout and clamor that they are not going to lose the opportunity of a potential meal. This map's going to be very difficult to keep in frame. I guess I will ask at this point. Is there any... Oh, I guess the ones also to the north would throw themselves inside. But is there any action at this point?
I guess I want to see... I want to shift and peek over the end of the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I see those guys.
Mm-hmm. You kind of like peek your head over, and one is kind of struggling with this large beam that's kind of been leaned against the door, and the other one's trying to like come around to help it, and like steps on his foot, and they both kind of let out a yelp and start like tussling with each other, but they get back onto the log trying to pull it up as it's a bit larger than they are.
All right. Can Ava and I see each other?
No.
Okay.
You and Sven can see each other, and that's the only person you have in line of sight right now.
All right.
Yes.
Tell Ava she's gonna have to close those doors. And to do it now.
Oh, that despicable child. Okay, yes. And then kind of glancing out towards where Ava was. Little girl, Quinn says you will need to close the front as he handles the back door.
You would not hear a reply, though, Thomas, as you were trying to keep a more active ear out around you, you would begin to hear Ava's breathing actually become audible, as it is kind of picking up and growing more strained and more tense. As a few seconds pass, you can kind of glance over in her direction. You see her crouched down beneath like a rather large overhanging tree branch that has been set in the barricade itself. Her demeanor is kind of like growing or turning in on itself, as like her bow is even kind of like pressed to her chest, and there is this like tension kind of building in her body language. Any action at this time, gentlemen?
And then going...
Can I creep over to her from where I'm at?
You certainly can. I will ask you for a stealth check, though, so if that changes your decision-making at all.
No, I'll roll it. So that is a 17.
Okay. As you kind of like untuck yourself from the position you had been set in, I'm assuming Sparkles is also on your person at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. You begin kind of shifting down the line, having to go kind of around the well as well. And there you go. As you are just kind of moving away from the barricade to go around that, I guess, roadblock, Braynoon, you would hear and see one of the kobolds kind of like leaping up onto the bed of the eastern wall, kind of peering through it. This one actually being a glass window that actually like rolls up and down. And it presses its nose up against the glass, its hot snort kind of creating this steamy mist in front of it. And its eyes are peering as it is certainly tracking something. Again, has not made any sort of cry or alarm, but it is fixed on something moving. As Brandon, you could probably track its movement to see that Thomas is being, I guess, watched more or less.
This entire time I've had a hand axe at the ready, but I'm just readying an action to throw my hand axe at that kobold if it calls out a warning.
Okay. Thomas, you're going to continue, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I mean, I have no indication that I'm being watched, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would make it down to Ava?
Yeah. Just whisper to her, "Are you all right?"
Yeah, I have to go close the doors.
I bet you'd be good at that.
I don't know if I'm strong enough. Those are big doors.
you need to be strong to close them. But you're the quietest of us.
I hope you make it to adulthood. And you see her start scrambling over the barricade and quickly out into the open. At this point, a lot of things happen. So let's start that list. As Ava goes up and over the brush, Braynoon, you would instantly see the kobold that's kind of pressed up against the window. His attention snaps to her immediately, and he begins, like, you see his mouth opening, you see his, like, whole posture beginning to kind of go straighter, as it's very clear he's about to make some sort of alarm.
That is a 23 to hit with
That
my
would
hand
hit.
axe.
Okay.
Ooh, and that is 9 damage.
Okay. So as the kobold kind of like is just mid-transferring into the new expression, its eyes going kind of wider, its mouth just about to open up enough for its tongue to belt out some sound, the window clatters into a million pieces, your axe slamming through the fragile glass as you see the end of his snout being sheared off by your weapon, just left this bloody, I guess, like, nubbed nose as he goes stumbling backwards, landing with a loud thud on the ground in the house, but clearly dispatched, hearing your axe kind of landing somewhere far off in the distance. So I'll probably count this as a surprise round for you all and go down initiative order. Thomas, you're first up, but there is nothing taking place, but you could certainly ready something for the surprise round if you'd like, sir.
I'd like to ready a firebolt for when the doors close. I want to shoot the first, whichever one of the accelerants would be most applicable for my position.
All right, and then we're down to Braynoon, which I'm assuming that ready to action would probably count as your last turn. So this would be your fresh turn for this round.
I am going to draw my other hand axe, and I will ready. So yeah, I'm going to draw my other hand axe. Seeing Ava running out, I am going to hop the barricade. Assuming since we designed it to be difficult terrain, that's going to be double. But I just want to get to there. Oh, as I realized that I had my
the ruler up.
Yeah, get to there, and then I have my hand axe at the ready to. Specifically, it would be at disadvantage, but I'm aiming at any kobolds that might be coming out the door at Ava.
Okay.
So if anything comes out to attack Ava.
Okay. They don't act. Sven.
To clarify, I haven't heard anything happen.
How far would you be able to see right now? You would see Ava leaping over the barricade. You would hear the glass being broken in the house. You're not far enough to see anyone else, but yeah, that would be what you would see.
I mean, that sounds like things are starting. So I'll take that as the signal. And go ahead and launch a firebolt.
Okay.
Towards that corner.
Okay. And then, Thomas, you still have yours ready for when the doors are closed, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Can I have conditions?
When the doors are closed, right?
Well, if the doors close, I hit the accelerant. If something comes out, I shoot it at them. Can I do that or no?
No, that's too far of a spread.
Okay. And
okay. So that was them. Now it's down to them. All right, Ava. Let's see what you got. What do I want to do here? Okay. As you all, except Quinn, see Ava booking over the barricade and blitzing across the gravel, there is a spray of rock behind her as she glides with this just like full tilt sprint towards the door. The kobolds that are almost kind of like piling up on top of each other in the now cramped space of the barn, are just beginning to get the latches open so that some of the cattle and pigs are like beginning to move out of their space. The one nearest the door kind of looks over at Ava in surprise, this like very sluggish look of uncertainty kind of crossing its features before the girl gets to the first door and kind of throws her body weight into it to slam it closed, getting the first one closed, and then attempting to reach over and pull the other one. Okay. As she's just about to get her hand on the opposing door, she stumbles away from her position, kind of like moving herself out of the space she was kind of planning on using to hold it shut. And as she is thrown off foot, she's more or less left standing in front of the still open door, face to face with the kobold inside, as she tries to give it a yank, but can't quite get it to begin the momentum of closing as she is stuck facing the door. And that would be... Ooh, wait a second.
Can she see what's happening? I suppose if there's a lantern there, she can.
Well, she's also an elf.
Oh, I missed that part.
I'm curious. How should I decide this? This sounds right. Okay. As it's clear that Ava is not getting the door closed, Sven, as you are kind of trying to catch as much as you can from your position, you are watching Lensa begin to just like spasm in her position. There are just these like quick jerks of muscle and movement as she is watching what is occurring. And then suddenly, without any warning, she doesn't go over the barricade. She goes through the barricade. A lot of the sticks that have been kind of rudimentarily shoved in the ground just being strewn to the side as she, like a bat out of hell, goes racing forward. Her movements are anything but graceful as she almost appears like a wild animal, just like racing towards the barn, this quick panic gasping breathing kind of matching in with her tremendous speed. You better roll higher, this is gonna look real dumb. Okay. And she uses all of her energy and her momentum to just continue going forward. She plows into Ava, who is stuck in this position face to face with a combatant, sending her to the ground, sprawled out, as she then uses the rest of that momentum to try and slam the door. Okay. And she would get the door closed. But she is now stood in front of it. It is not barricaded at this point, but the door is closed. So that is there. I guess, Thomas, this would be your time?
Yeah, so that would be my trigger.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and reveal this. That's not what I meant to do. Yeah, you would all see the door close. As Sven, you ignite your corner, and Thomas, you ignite your end of the barn. Quickly, the prearranged fuel that you had set up, kind of causing this cool outline of the building to begin smoke and smolder and then burst into flame as the bottom of the barn begins to light. Quinn, you are 10 feet above it on the roof watching the building start to go up in flame. And that would be all of that wrapped up in a turn, and we are now down to Quinn, sir.
Alright, I think there's only one thing to do. I want to about how much taller is the roof above the doors than the corner where I am?
So there is like the A-frame of the barn, which at its peak is probably, we'll say maybe like 7-8 feet above the top of the door. Then there is, I don't know what you call it, like a secondary roof that allows like airflow out the bottom of it, like a little cap in the center of the barn, and that's maybe another 5 feet tall. So that's about as high as you could get.
Okay. I want to scramble up the roof to here, drop on top of the right kobold, and then attack the left kobold.
Okay.
Use the first kobold to break my fall with his back, and the second will hopefully be stabbed to death.
Okay, so your first attack is just you fall damaging on top of him?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm gonna probably ask for an acrobatics getting up to the top of the roof because of how slippery and slopey it is.
That is a 15.
Okay. And I'm debating. I almost want to ask for a dex save to try and stop yourself from being a fool and falling off the roof unheroically. So let's go with that.
Okay.
As opposed to falling off the
one
roof
of my good
heroically.
18.
Okay. So what I'm probably going to do is just roll your fall damage and then apply it to him. We'll see how that goes. Because, yeah, at this point, you're only about 10 or so feet up. Maybe a little bit higher, but okay. Wow. Good stuff. Okay. Do you want to describe to me how this looks, sir?
Absolutely. So, doesn't seem like I had too much trouble getting up the roof. So, on all fours, sort of like frog manning up the roof, and peek over just to make sure I'm in the right spot, and then sort of squat at the ledge and then hop off. Draw my rapier in midair and hopefully land ready to fight the other kobold. I'm bend the knees, feet together, right between the first kobold's shoulder blades.
Okay. So as you leap from the roof and there's a quick rush of air as you fall, you can see for the last moment of this kobold's life, him struggling with one of the beams of the door as your feet land perfectly at the curve of his spine, and before your full weight is even on him, the impact is enough that you hear this distinct snap and you see all sensation of his body leaving him as his corpse is then just your landing pad as you hit the ground with a rather muted thud with a nice bit of cushioning beneath you as the kobold beside him is just about to give like another heave on the log but looks over in horror as where his eyes of his companion previously were, it's just your torso in his way as you lash out at your combatant, sir.
All right, I rolled a 19, so it's like a 24 or something. And it is a sneak attack. Because now, as of the first kobold's death, there are no more creatures near us.
Mm-hmm.
12.
That would do it. As you land and draw back your sword, the kobold like just kind of begins growing this look of shock and awe, and he goes, "Human!" And then the rapier is just jammed right down his throat, his tongue kind of like skewered and shish kebabbed on the point of your rapier as you drive it down through his neck and his throat, dispatching him rather quickly. I guess that would be your turn unless you have something else, sir?
Do I have any movement left?
Given the circumstance, I'm gonna probably go with no.
What about if I use my bonus action, cunning action?
That seems fine. That'll work.
I want to get to the other corner of the barn because I want to make sure. And I'll stop right, let's say there.
Okay.
Because I want to see if there are any others outside before I proceed. And that'll be the end of my turn.
Alrighty. So this would be the end of the surprise round that you all gathered, and we'll be back up to Thomas.
I don't see at this point any other. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any kobolds inside of you. The doors are closed, but not yet barricaded. You know that there's at least one more in the building off to your west, and there is the general fear of some being off to your north.
I will hop over the barricade. And so that was
Just be 10 feet.
10 feet. I'll move down this way.
Okay.
And I'll ready an action to cast Firebolt if I see another kobold appear.
So I don't want to play for you, sir, but I have a question. You still have Unseen Servant cast, correct?
Yeah, it's following me at this point.
Would you want that to assist in anything currently?
I can have it. It can move. Only trouble is it can't move to the doors. I don't think.
Oh, is that too far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it only has a 30 feet of movement. Is that right?
Yeah. So,
yeah. So it's. It says rain. No, rain. Casting range. Oh, it can move up. No, it can only move up to 15 feet. So it's trailing behind.
It's still getting over the barricade. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're readying a firebolt when you see a kobold?
Yeah.
All right. Brainoon, your turn, sir.
Okay. Just one point of clarification before I do anything. Would you rule that me putting the lock in the door would be part of my object interaction as part of a move?
Yes, since the doors are closed and it's prepared to go into the door, I'll say yes.
Okay. In that case, move and action dash to the doors. I am going to, as I'm moving, yell to Ava and Lensa to go to Thomas, and then I want to slam the bar into the doors.
Okay.
And that is my turn.
Okay. As you break away from the building and dash across a small space, the barn beginning to actually start going up, not just the fuel that you put, but the barn itself. You reach the door and go clattering the barricade or the beam or the bar into its position. As you hear the first throw of a kobold body against the door, the rattling kind of securing your confirmation that you've gotten this into a good enough position. Lensa doesn't even look like she hears you, as Ava down from the ground kind of looks up at you with still a bit of shock on her face, the bow that she was wielding like a few inches from her hand, as she reaches to grab that and just kind of starts nodding at you as she is getting ready to get back up and leave, supposedly. But that'd be your turn, and we are down to the red boys, which I think all of them are in the barn. Okay. That actually makes it a lot easier for me.
You're welcome.
So as you all are bearing witness this situation, the plan going more or less pretty goddamn good considering all the different things that could have gone wrong. You see smoke begin to accumulate at the windows and pushing out through the small gaps between the planks, the fire starting to go inside instead of just singeing the outside of the building, the copious amounts of hay being a very good lighter or fuel source for the fire kind of flicking and licking at different things. The shouts and the screams of the kobold currently don't sound painful, but more panicky at this point. I guess I'll make it pretty clear that probably damage is not occurring with this amount of fire, but it is obviously quite worrying to anybody in the building. The scrambling that you heard around and the squealing and thudding of the cattle now are amplified to an absolute magnitude as everything in this building is hell-bent on getting outside of this building. I'll probably go ahead and move the majority of them to windows, trying to break them open. And the doors, trying to get through them the other way, and that's probably a safe bet of where they are during this turn. And that would probably be Red's turn. Now we're to the yellow guys. Okay, so this guy's easy. Comes out to the patio.
So when he moves there,
Yep.
So that is a 13 to hit.
That would hit.
Five damage.
Okay. Because Thomas, you've only just been lighting fires and readying actions. Describe to me how this kobold loses his life.
Oh wow. Kind of in the same vein that with Braynoon, he comes around, and as he comes out, he sees the party, and he goes to open his mouth, and as his mouth opens, that's when the firebolt intersects and fills his mouth with fire.
I think it's a curse that none of these kobolds are ever going to be able to raise an alarm as he runs out on the patio, mouth opening, the sharp teeth displaying in the moonlight before a large burst of flame goes entering his mouth, beginning to singe away the flesh inside before he just gurgles out his last breath, kind of clawing at his throat that is rather spicy, and then collapses down to the ground. All right. So that was their turn. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I guess. No, that works. Wow, good shit. But, Lensa and Braynoon. As you are looking off to the north, the first kobold through the door falling down to the ground, the two behind him, one actually making it out the door, the other one kind of peering around its lip, are both wielding what look like little clay balls in their hand that they both immediately put into a firing position and then hurl your direction. What would be your AC, Braynoon?
I am unmuted. 18.
Oh, your boy, natural 20. Good shit. All right, we'll see how that goes. You would take, that would be 5 force damage and 8 acid damage. As you go to turn, the ball comes flying through the air, kind of watching the trajectory, sending it your way. Before it hits your shoulder, there's a small impact as it hits your armor, and you feel the majority of that damage kind of reflected. But then the ball shatters, much like a clay pot would on impact, and inside there is this green, dark sludge that coats the front of your chest, begins to burn and I guess singe the material that it lands on. This very potent, stinging, hurting sensation or smell kind of making its way into your nostrils, as you can very clearly identify that this plaster is some sort of acidic material. It will basically use up all of its damaging components. It's not going to burn continuously as it kind of splashes and then eats away before it turns mundane.
So, Absorb Elements does not clarify that it has to be a spell. It just says a reaction when you take acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage.
Works for me.
So, I will use Absorb Elements and gain resistance to that acid damage.
Okay, so I'll bring it down to half.
Yep, so that you said it was 8 acid?
Yes, that would be 4.
Okay, and you see as it hits Braynoon, part of it actually gets absorbed into him and travels down into his hand axe that he has out and coats the blade with acid.
I like to think there's just a big mighty sniff as you just like transfer some of it through your face, but alrighty, good shit, sir. Now Lensa. Dude, I am not shitting you. That's the first time I've rolled nat 20s twice in a row.
So she's gonna get royally fucked.
So that would be 6 points of force damage.
I think that's part of her plan.
11 acid damage, which
that does it.
Braynoon, as you are just standing tall, I guess it's a bad phrase, standing strong through this pain, this acid, even using some of it to fuel your next attack. Lensa turns around after securing the door in place, seeing the kobold coming out of her home. There is this brief moment of, actually, let me double check this real quick. Yes, of strange recognition on her face as she gets out, Neldon, and then a clay pot hits her face, and instantly the bruised and battered features that she wore is consumed by the thick green acid. There is this half-gargled shout that begins to go muffled and mute as her lips are fused together and her skin is eaten away, as her hands come up reflexively to try and claw at the material, but it is far too late as her body fails and she collapses down to the ground, lifeless. Jesus Christ, Lensa, you are the unluckiest NPC I think I have ever had. Right up there with Jolin. But, alright, that would be yellow. Sven.
Okay, so the fire... Oh, Jesus, why did I do that? The fire is spread across.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to light anything else.
Mm-hmm.
On at least this side, probably both sides.
It's safe to assume the barn is good.
Wonderful. So Sven's
Or
just
not.
going to go up to the window,
Okay.
and then peering in. You know, this seems like a good time for some area damage. And so, just kind of peering in, he'll wreathe his wand in a quick inscription of vines and cast it out into the barn. Right about, yeah,
Okay.
I think that ought to be able to get most of them.
What's the radius?
Anyways, and cast Wither and Bloom. It is a 10-foot radius.
Okay.
And everyone in there will need to make a Constitution saving throw of 14.
Okay. Let me go ahead and roll double for him real quick. So those two. Yeah. Fail, succeed, fail.
So the failures take 8 necrotic damage,
Okay,
and
so
the
that's
successes take 4.
That one, and then the bottom two to the south are damaged. So, yeah, you would see a rather large cluster on the inside who are yet to find their way to some sort of exit or an attempt at an exit, are frantically kind of looking around. One has its arms like around one of the younger pigs that it looks like it's trying to carry off, as the pig is just kind of like resigned to its death at this point, just limply hanging from his hands. As your spell takes effect, this large blast of necrotic vegetation, I suppose.
Kind of whips around.
Starts like grabbing some of their ankles and smacking them across the face and jamming through their eyes as they are letting loose a symphony of displeasure. A couple of them would fall down to the ground as the other two, kind of at the edge of the effect, kind of batter it away with their hands and stumble back towards the flames.
Yes, take that, you filthy mongrels.
Is that your turn, sir?
And, you know what? Just because it's gonna get hairy, he'll go ahead and prepare himself and activate his blade song as light humming vibrations start to coalesce around him.
Right. So, beside you, Braynoon, Ava does get to her feet, casting a somewhat concerned glance down at the previously alive Lensa. She does grab Quinn's bow in her hand, locks eyes with the kobold that had landed a blow upon you, knocks an arrow, and goes to fire. And that would hit. As she is still, like, getting to her feet, there's a bit of, like, dirt and grime over one eye that she has to wipe away. As she goes to take the shot, it does land, the kobold in the door, getting a rather deep slice on his shoulder as the arrow doesn't quite sink, but scrapes past his flesh. It lets out a little bit of a cry, takes one step back, as Ava curses under her breath, and then goes trying to stride past you. She does only get half movement because she had to stand back up, so she'll get to there, but at least farther away from the burning barn than she was. And that would be her turn. Down to Quinn, sir.
So, just a quick glance to the door that I was defending stay reasonably barricaded. I think they
you'd see it kind of like buckling as some sort of force from the inside is trying to escape, but you would see the timber that was still in place and the bar across it is still there.
Okay. I feel like, so I'm not aware. I'm not aware that the yellow guys, like, I'm not aware of them. They're too far for me to see.
Yeah. Well, with the commotion, I would say that you could probably see the one in the door, having just taken the shot, kind of making noise. There's enough like light coming off the burning barn that you can see him, but it's certainly not a clear image.
Well, it's good enough for me to know that there's some that aren't in the barn. So I can't get there. All right, I can't get there in one turn, so I'll move here and step up and try to stab this guy in his face through the glass, through the window.
Okay. Go for it.
That's only a 10.
That would miss her.
All right. But since I attacked him, he cannot opportunity attack me.
Okay.
So I'll continue using my movement, bonus action, cunning, dash, whatever to get there.
Okay. As you step to the window and like jam your rapier through, he does this weird like wiggle, almost like a belly dancer, where he shifts to the side, missing the blow, but as like retaliation tries to swipe at you, but you're already gliding away up to the north. He lets out a little draconic curse.
Enough to make him realize that outside is not really any safer.
I don't know. It might be. But all right, that is your turn, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So at this point, Raynoon, you would hear the door being kind of assaulted or attacked on the other side. Okay. The rest of the gentlemen now would get to move to the various windows. Right there. We'll double up there. I'll go there. I think that's about all of them. Basically anywhere but the center of the building. So that's... actually, Sven, you're standing right there. How lucky. As you are rather cheesed or charmed by your successful spell that you flung into the interior of the barn, off to just your slight right, where one of the windows is, you see one of the kobolds, like, leap over to the window, latching on to the actual bars. You can see the back of his head is currently on fire, some sort of helmet or cloth hat being ablaze. As he's wielding one of those clay pots in his hand, he lands on the window, spots you outside, and just out of, like, maybe spite or bitterness or reaction, hurls it your way. What is your AC currently?
As he throws that, Sven will react and just you're barely more than an animal, and cast silvery barbs, imposing. Well, roll twice, use the lower roll.
Okay. Yeah. Does he take any damage from this?
No, he just has disadvantage on his attack.
That would be a 10 total. I'm assuming that does not hit you?
It does not.
Okay. Yes.
And then I will give myself advantage on my next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw.
All right. As you see his little face kind of scrunching up in anger as the ball goes sailing past you, hitting a tree and beginning to eat away at the bark, you just hold your elegant stance as the little Cretan is left to burn alive. Now that we are at the top of the round, I need to first find the correct one. Whoopsies. A little bit of map maneuvering. Get rid of that. There we go. Grab this. And haha. That worked as intended this time. Look at me. Alright. So top of the round, we were back to you, Thomas.
So I can see the one in the doorway there?
Yes, there's the one in the doorway that just got the damage from Ava's arrow. There's one behind it that you can see, but it's very obscured. And I guess that would be all the ones in your vision.
So, if anybody was looking at Thomas right now, they would see that he's actually got a little bit of a smile on his face. He's seems to be enjoying this, but just muttering under his breath. He's teach you to pick on people, and then he'll cast Firebolt at the one that Ava just hit.
All right.
And that is 17.
That would hit, and I assume if you do more than 1 damage...
7.
Yep. That would get him, as he is still kind of recoiling from the arrow impact. He just gets blindsided by the firebolt, sending his little corpse off to the side and down to the ground. Anything else?
The Unseen Servant will move. Should be adjacent to me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just hold my position here.
Righty. Brainium, down to your turn, sir.
Let's see. I am going to move up. Jeez, I gotta get off the ruler. Move up to here, which should be 25 feet. As I'm moving, you see the acid that was coating the blade move back into my hand as I drop the hand axe and pull my hammer off of my back. The acid then coating the head of the hammer. Would I be able to make an like, I understand that it's not like a 3/4 cover when I'm able to attack that kobold, or
I'll probably give him half cover.
Okay. Half cover's what, like a +2 to AC?
Yeah, it's +2, I think.
I don't think it's going to matter, because that's going to be a 23 to hit.
That would hit.
Doing 6 acid damage and 3 bludgeoning damage as I just kind of bring the hammer straight down on him. Also, as I moved, I shout out to anybody that comes over here that Lensa is dead, just so people are aware and not looking for her. But
as you go racing up to the house, the kobold, who's kind of like peering around the door, sees you approaching. You see the singular eye that you can see going wide, and he ducks behind the door. You are unable to hear it, but I suppose, Quinn, you were close enough, and you would hear, "Ah, look at me!" And then the hammer comes around the corner, sliding down the length of the door frame, where you first catch the top of his head and then his snout, and drag him to the ground before his skull is crushed beneath your hammer blow, and you discard the little gremlin.
And then I'll just kind of take a look around to see. I don't see any, so I'm assuming I don't notice any more inside the house, but hold my position. Actually, I still have a bonus action, and no, I won't do that right now. I will finish my turn there.
All right. How many red boys are left in the building? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Ah, that makes it easy. 1d10. Where are you? Oh, damn. Sven, you probably have the best view of this. As you are looking through the window, you see all of them are like tearing at the bars, banging at the doors. Some of them are even trying to like dig their weapons into the siding of the barn to try and pry that open. It is this frantic mess and is quickly going up in smoke, where it is harder and harder to discern what's going on as the air in there is growing thicker and thicker with the rather troubling vapor gas smoke. It's literally just smoke. I can't think of another term for it. At first, you see the two at the door getting crushed by a falling piece of a beam above them. Their two bodies kind of being splayed out as they are lifeless on the ground. Get rid of them. Then the ones nearest Quinn, as you are still striding across the space, you would hear beside you one of them screaming out in pain as he repetitively keeps screaming, I'm on fire, as his partner screams, get off of me, as they both burn to a crisp. I will not go through the arduous task of describing every death. Every single red one dies, because I rolled a goddamn 10 on the 1d10.
I was so hoping that was what your reaction was.
So, Sven, you get to watch as this chaotically perfect, beautiful moment of death and fire and destruction plays out in front of you as one after the other, much like the birthday cakes on a candle, are snuffed out and destroyed in one fell swoop. Don't give me that look, JC. It makes sense. All right. That's Red's turn. Yay. All right. But I still have a trick up my sleeve. Let me get this all in position. And then he's kind of... Yep. All right. Let me make sure... Oh, shit. There we go. So, Thomas, as you are watching the kind of stragglers in the house and in the front of the barn being taken care of, Lensa's death being called out as you spot her lifeless corpse on the floor, Ava is still trying to sprint your direction, as off to your right, you hear a fair bit of crunching and shifting around. You glance northward, and you see the barricade that you just previously had defended has now been taken up by a small cluster of kobolds, all of them kind of clambering up into position as their eyes scan the small area and spy, I guess, you, Ava, and Mr. Sparkles in their immediate vicinity, and the burning barn behind you. Go ahead and give me an intimidation check with disadvantage, sir.
Thomas, having been, like, all the fire, especially, has ignited, like, this long dormant, you know, the demonic presence in him is, infernal presence is really being stoked by this. And just drawing from all of the past injustices he's had to suffer and everything he's had to put up with, and then now finally manifesting some power, and you know, seeing two kobolds go down at his own hand, and you know, seeing the plan, you know, come into fruition as it is, he's feeling really good about himself. So when he turns to look at them, it's almost like the threads of time have come to this moment, and that's a 19.
I fucking knew it. I love you, Rob. Thomas, as you go to turn, hearing these assailants gathering into their position, you strike this kind of subconscious pose as your robes billow in the kind of gusting wind, the smoke of the barn darkening the sky around you. There is this large plume of fire as one of the hay bales kind of stuck up in the loft goes blasting through the roof, a small shattering of wood being cascaded around the area as this long, wicking, snake-like fire plume goes arcing through the sky. The red glow in your eyes is the only thing truly visible in the dark silhouette as you face these kobolds. Your book kind of magically flipping through the pages as you prepare your next spell. The actual papers seem to be alight with fire and magic as you stare them down. You see them all kind of getting into position, raising up their arms, and then instantly 4 of them go, fuck no, and turn back around and go scampering off into the woods. So that would be these gentlemen, as the one still at the barricade grits his teeth and determinedly goes to throw his weapon. What is your AC, sir?
For right now, it's a 15.
Ooh, barely missed. As he hucks it, it's clear that the distance is pretty far, and the concerning image you've struck probably puts him at a little bit of a disadvantage, no pun intended, as the sphere goes sailing through the dark sky and kind of goes through your horns almost like a goalpost, and then lands behind you with a loud clattering. He also seems moderately concerned about his health, as his weapon does not land, and that would be their turn. Good job. Sven.
Well, it seems like the fire's doing its job. I'm not super concerned about them, but let me see here. Just from what I can see, there's still a few in there, but for the most part, everything's on fire.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I won't concern myself with them for now. Sven will go ahead and head back on up this direction to go stand next to Thomas. And then seeing this smattering running off, he'll go ahead and cast Sleep and just kind of whip his wand around, little mutterings coming out of his mouth, and then flick it like a whip.
What is the range and the radius of that, sir?
That is a 20-foot radius, 90-foot
You
range.
can get all of them? I hate Sleep so much. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's super great, but starting with the lowest health points, 19 health points worth of sleeping people.
Okay, you would get 3 of them.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and mark them.
If I get a choice, I'd love it to be like those 3.
Yeah, that's the one I was planning on marking.
Okay,
So,
cool.
That one and that one. Work for you?
That's perfect.
Okay.
And they fall to the ground unconscious, and I believe that is it for Sven. I don't think I have any bonus actions worth doing. No.
Yes. As the would-be raiders flee in terror, they are sent into the nightmare realm, as the last image in their mind is a demonic warlord bearing down upon them with the utmost ferocity as they slump to the ground in agonizing sleep. And that is your turn, so we are down to Ava, who is going to run up to protect Thomas. And then take a lovely shot at the man behind the barricade. So let's, come on, Ava. This is your time to shine. Okay. Apparently, oh no, I actually have to roll your damage. That's a thing. Okay. As the young girl returns back to your side, Thomas, thankfully alive after her heroic charge into the fray, she knocks another arrow into her bow and looses it at the singular opponent that still faces you. You see the shot very elegantly go through the barricade, striking the kobold in between the eyes as its body is sent backwards, crumpling down to the ground. Ava very much takes this as saving your life, as you were clearly being assaulted by their vicious attacks. She seems quite proud of herself, still relatively shaken by all of the death and mayhem, but at least being somewhat useful. And that would be all of her turn, and we're down to Quincer. I know you have so many options.
There hasn't been any sign of. I mean, I don't need to ask that. We would know. I suppose I'm just going to use my turn to get up next to Brainoon and say, Where are we at? We good? And that'll be all for now, I think.
Yeah, I'll basically at this point just respond with a shrug of not really knowing yet.
Good. Okay, let me... Come on, this is my last hurrah. You gotta give me this. 2, 4, 6, 9. Okay, I'll give myself a 1d8. Give me a chance at least. That's a cockeye roll. Okay. 2 of them go down. Much better than the entire squad. And now, give myself a beautiful. This one and this one will break open the windows they are currently fighting with, leaping out of the building. They are very much...
Did they have to make a check of some kind?
Kind of, sort of, not really. What did you have?
Well, it was if there was an ability check done, I was gonna.
I didn't roll
something.
like a whole line of ability checks. I just rolled for how many would assumedly
Okay, never
succeed.
mind then.
So okay. So as they leap out of the building, they are clearly on fire, and doesn't look like they're gonna not be on fire anytime recently or soon. Not recently, but they are out and looking rather angry. Let's see. I'm gonna give you all wisdom saves. Nope. I just rolled double natural ones. That's 2 20s in a row and 2 1s in a row. That is good stuff. So they're just going to flee and die somewhere else. Okay.
Only
yeah.
you can prevent forest fires started by burning kobolds.
I assume someone is going after the singular yellow kobold that is still alive and fleeing to the north.
Yeah, Thomas would be very inspired to do that.
Okay, and then the 3 sleeping ones we can find a solution
Yeah,
for.
we'll just dispatch them.
Yeah, and then the ones in the barn are dead. Because I spent time on it, we're going to set up the 3rd fire, because, you know, I just gotta. But yeah, it is very safe to assume that the combat is more or less done.
Do you want me to roll for it, or?
Oh, there's 2 fleeing. I forgot, because you can't see them. Yeah, I'll have you and Ava both roll to see if you can get rid of them real quick.
Yeah, I got him. It's
Okay.
18 plus 7.
Ava does not get hers.
So as Ava comes up next to Thomas, he's speaking in Infernal, so I'm not sure she can understand it, but it would be an entirely different tone than his voice is normally pitched in.
Mm-hmm.
He would say that you've met your end, little kobold. Your time on this plane of existence is up. Your spirit shall depart from this world. And before he casts, and then...
So Ava would just kind of look up at you with a great deal of concern on her face as the rather guttural dialect of Infernal kind of rolls from your tongue, and then just stay silent. But it would mean that one of the kobolds does escape. Thomas, you would see him fleeing off into the woodlands as the other 3 are left asleep. And then the 2 that broke out of the barn are dead, and all the ones in the barn are dead. And we can go ahead and bring this combat to a close and take our 10-minute break.
And I'll note that in the intervening downtime, I'll ritualistically cast Detect Magic and go back to the stash of magic that I had detected earlier in the house.
Okay. Len says, barely dead, and we're looting the house. Okay. Alright.
Sven did have plans on keeping at least one of those alive.
I imagine so. Yeah, we'll get to that after the 10-minute break. But alright. So as the barn continues to burn in its blaze, a large plume of smoke kind of drifting off into the night sky, it's very clear that everyone in town is going to see this and potentially come to some sort of conclusion. But the threat, as far as you all are aware, has been dealt with for the time being, with one scampering off into the distance. Ava, Thomas, and Mr. Sparkles, you're all kind of stood in that little courtyard area in front of the burning barn, as Quinn and Brainerd, you are on the front porch of the home, which is now empty with, well, I guess, a dead kobold on the front door. And Sven, you are off to the east, still witnessing the magnificent scene of kobolds burning to death. I know you actually came back up into the north, but still similar scene, I suppose. But yes, you all would find yourself triumphant and in a pretty good position as the night settles in.
So Thomas would go up to Ava and I told you could do it. That was really magnificent. I mean, the way that you just flew across the rocks there, like it just looked like you were running on water. It was really cool. And then you slammed the door shut and good job.
As you mentioned the door, she kind of looks back at it. She's like, well, and then you see her eyes kind of landing on Lensa's charred corpse, which is now kind of slumped against the front of the door. I got one of them, I suppose.
You know, when I look at Lensa, I can only feel happiness for her. I don't think her mind was going to get better.
She was a pretty brutal bitch.
But she saved your life.
That might be a stretch.
It costs you nothing to give respect to the dead.
True. Doesn't mean I have to.
Well, then maybe I'll be happy when you grow up.
You're a little terrifying. I kind of like that.
It was pretty fun tonight. Just felt powerful for a change.
Yeah. I guess we should, check with the others?
Others are fine. There's some magic stuff in the house. You want to help me find it?
I think I've been warned about this. I think I'll go check in with Quinn.
Okay, if there's something cool, I'll let you know.
Hmm,
I'll go
okay.
into the house.
So Quinn and Brandon, as you are stood on the front porch, you would see Thomas kind of striding by as Ava kind of waddles up at the bottom step.
You all right?
Yeah, I got one. Your bow, it's not straight. You have to adjust, you know.
It's my backup.
I didn't see you during it. Are you okay?
Yeah, they were gonna get the other door open, so that's why I told Sven to message you about that side.
Yeah, it was great being abandoned. It was fantastic. At least there was a reason.
In the field, you have to make adjustments.
Is this a field? Can I put the corpses in the fire?
I don't see why not.
Probably about the time that Ava and Thomas been walking, I would have gone inside, one, to recover my hand axe that's inside the house, and then I would have collected the corpses with the intention of throwing them into the fire.
Well, Ava would certainly assist, choosing probably not to engage with you because you seem to be the curmudgeon of the group. Well, that would be what she was off to. Thomas, I'm assuming you are going to the floorboards and...
Yeah, and give unless there was any more urgency to the time, I would take a moment to. I'd take 10 minutes to cast detect magic.
Okay. I mean, you had found it before or spotted it before, so it's easy
just to
enough.
make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah. Going back to the house, you do see that bit of essence, I guess, glowing from beneath the floorboards, and it would be simple enough to you have to shift the bed a little bit off to the side and then actually get the floorboards up. But you would discover it looks like a pretty plain leather-wrapped journal, like a little bit of twine actually holding the cover closed, and there's a small silver ring set on top of it.
Which one's glowing, the journal or the ring?
The journal.
I will take both of them.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't die?
No.
All right, cool.
You do not die. The house explodes. But, Sven, what are you doing currently, sir?
Well, I've got 3 prisoners to deal with, so Sven would hurry off over to them. Find whichever one was better equipped,
Okay.
and keep that one alive. I doubt there's going to be much difference, but if like one has a nicer sword than the other 2, and drag it back to the house. It might wake up, so I don't know about that, but
I mean, you
try
could
and drag it
carry
back.
it. And
Well,
then
it's only going to be asleep for a minute, so
Well, I imagine this is your first thing that you're doing when you walk over, so a minute's a pretty long period of time.
oh, okay. Then yeah, just over the shoulder, which is not easy.
I mean, they're not
But-
large creatures, but as you dispatch 2 of them, picking the one that seems to have a bronze coin in place of a missing scale on its cheek, assuming maybe that's the most interesting one, you leave the 2 corpses behind and bring back your captive as he is still snoozing rather securely on your shoulder, a bit of kobold drool kind of leaking down onto your coat or your robe as you bring him back into the courtyard.
And just like quickly power walking up to the porch, there's Quinn and Ava, correct? Yes, one for interrogation, and he'll just throw him down onto the floor.
As he like hits the board, there's a little like
Quinn, I believe this is more of your expertise.
I'm not sure how to feel about that implication, but you're probably right. And then I will proceed to secure him to some piece of furniture.
Okay. I think there is an actual chair on the porch that would be a pretty applicable piece of furniture to use. Okay. So getting him secured, Brayden, as you were carrying one of the corpses out, Ava's kind of like uselessly holding the feet of it as you are dragging it away, just like pretending to help. She kind of looks over at the scene taking place and kind of nods in approval as you bring the kobold down to the barn. I imagine it would wake up relatively soon. Thomas, you would still be doing your ritual detect magic, I guess. So it would just be Sven and Quinn on the porch with them.
Going to just sit down on the porch and kind of relax once this kobold is sufficiently bound. And I'm not gonna bother telling Eva to do anything. I'm sure she's gonna want to hang around, but I do say to her, don't get close enough to touch him.
Ava kind of wandered back. You see that she has one of those like clay balls that they've been throwing in her hand, and she's kind of like inspecting that. Like, yeah, yes, of course.
And then I'll just kind of sit down on the porch and relax and wait for him to wake up.
Sven, you doing similar?
No, I think Sven will give him a light slap, wake him up.
Okay. As you all are watching and waiting, Sven comes up and just a little... And you would see the kobold's face kind of flinch, and then one eye peer open, and as he's strapped to the chair, he, like, partially wakes up, not quite sure what scene he's looking at, and then very quickly realizes what has occurred. You see him start, "No! No!" and just thrashing around in his throne.
Give him another little slap on the head.
And so in Draconic, I say, I've done this before.
What?
I'm Quinn.
I'm Bean!
Bean?
Bean!
Okay, Bean. I want you to take a deep breath
Ah!
and just try to relax. You can help yourself. Believe it or not.
Speak!
Where did you come from?
The mountain!
How far?
2 moons!
Where are you staying now?
I don't understand!
Where did you sleep last night?
Ground!
How long did it take to get from there to here?
He looks very stressed as he is actively trying to decipher this strange terminology that he's not quite familiar with.
Not familiar with how long something takes?
Not in, I guess, like traditional sense of like, oh yeah, it took an afternoon, or yeah, I strolled up this morning. Eventually, as you see the limited cogs churning in his mind, he's like,
The big ball went down and up.
That happened one time.
Yes.
What direction?
The big ball?
No, if you were going back there, which direction would you leave here from?
he kind of like tries to gesture. You see his arm kind of like gets stuck on the armrest, and then he starts like jerking his head. He's like,
The mountains!
and he would point vaguely off to the west.
How many more of you?
He kind of slowly turns his gaze to the barn, and slowly back to you.
I don't know.
They're all dead, so don't count them.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But
But where's the big one, though?
As you allude to what he can more or less connect the pieces of, you see his like gaze kind of squint of kind of different demeanor, I guess, taking him over as he seems almost like slump in his chair. He's like,
he's back at the cave.
Tell us about him.
He's very big.
What else?
He speaks.
yeah, well,
In your head? He talks to you in your head?
Yes. we're only free if we're, away.
So he's the boss.
Yeah.
Has he always been the boss?
No, Bean and,
Oh, he kind of looks over at the barn, and there's just like kind of forlorn expression on the edge of his snout. Kind of like dips his head.
Big Rock. Big Rock and Bean, we,
Well, no. Was Big Rock with you?
yeah, Big Rock, he's my,
Well, one other one escaped. Maybe it was him.
did he have a big rock?
Yes.
Give me a deception check.
18.
He kind of like starts getting maybe a little bit more easygoing or less on guard.
Now, what if we help you go and find him? We won't stab you or burn you.
Yes.
Could you get back?
Back here?
No, back to the cave. What? To the cave?
Yeah.
Looking over at Quinn. Maybe.
Do you like having the big one as boss?
I never thought about that before. No?
You don't want him to be the boss anymore.
There's no other bosses. I don't have
How
a
about
choice.
him? And I'll gesture to Sven.
Give me a persuasion check.
That's a nat 20.
God damn it.
The total is 29.
Good God. You'd watch
You
as
gotta-
Bean kind of shifts his eyes over to Sven and like looks at you with a bit of renewed interest instead of just kind of like being afraid of you, like looks you up and down. And he would eventually kind of like bring his eyes back up to yours. He's like,
Do you have beans?
Sven will just look out, because we're still on the porch, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so looking out past where the roof of it is, he'll just release his breath weapon and just gush forth a cone of flames. And then look back at him. Do I need beans?
he kind of like tries to hide himself as best he can in the chair. He's like,
No, but Big One has beans.
What kind of beans?
Yellow beans, gray beans, bronze beans.
Reaching into his pouch, he'll pull out a single gold coin.
you would see his eyes turn into little saucers. He's like,
Beans.
Would you like some beans?
Yes.
Well, I'll put it back. Maybe you and Big Rock can have some of the beans.
Big Rock doesn't need beans.
Well, Quinn, perhaps we should let the guys know there may
Right.
be an option.
Okay. Wait right here, Beans.
Ava.
Okay.
Ava, don't touch this one.
Ava
Don't-
looks incredibly concerned at both of you. He's like, you can understand them?
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's deeply concerning.
I have many skills.
I won't let him go anywhere.
If he does try to get out, maybe just a light stab on the foot. Nothing more.
But you go, I guess, grab either Thomas, Brandon, or both.
Well, they're both in the same room, aren't they?
I thought Brandon was throwing corpses on the bottom.
I've been throwing dead things on the fire.
It ain't good work, but it's honest work. But yeah, you guys could, I guess, accumulate in the living room or some sort. Don't all speak at once.
Depending on how much time passed, I probably would have started looking at the journal.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of magic is emanating from it?
I think it would fall under enchantment as a school. The contents we'll go over in a bit more detail later, because I need time for that. But just kind of scanning the, I guess, first few pages or what's written in there. Excuse me. There appear to be journal entries, diary entries, something of the sort, that are actually marked and dated. And each page or two seems to have a new entry in it. And I guess the most notable thing is the first entry is perhaps 3-4 years ago. And the most recent one is around, I think, a month or so ago. So it is pretty current. You would also, I guess, acknowledge that the name is not Lensa's or Theo would have been her husband. I don't know if you guys ever actually learned that, but I think it was offered up at some point.
Yeah,
But
I think we got it from what's his name, LR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The actual name that is like signed at each of the end of the journal entries is Gelvek. Gelvek.
All right, that'd be enough for now. I'll look at it later.
But you would come to the living room with your acquired goods, and Braynoon with your triumphant burning.
Anything useful?
But one of them is willing to take us to the cave.
Did you learn anything else about what was in the cave?
The big one is the boss. Hasn't always been that way. It speaks to them in their minds. And they're only not under its influence when they are away from it.
Would I recognize it as one of the ones that I had intimidated previously?
Yeah, I guess if you glanced outside, sure.
So, I'll look at, while I'm looking at the kobold in the eyes, I'll just kind of look over at my shoulder, and in Draconic, I'll say, "Why haven't we killed him yet?"
Thomas. So bloodthirsty.
He's clearly given us all the information he has. He's of no more use to us, is he?
No, he's going to lead us.
We don't need him.
This is unusual behavior for Thomas. Can I run an insight check here?
Sure, yeah.
15.
I think, yeah, you can more or less, put the
So
pieces
then
together.
I'll you know me well enough that you know that I'm just trying to intimidate him. I'm really not cut out to just brutally murder him yet.
Oh my. And like where the thing can't see. Fennel. And in Draconic. Thomas, I understand you want to remove its eyes or pull out its fingers, but it's gruesome.
Nothing a little fire won't clean up.
Was Thomas's response in Draconic, or I just want to?
I imagine this is all in Draconic, right?
Okay.
It's in Draconic, and I'm pitching it so that the Kobold is hearing it all.
So Braden's just like, guys?
Could we perhaps keep our conversation to a language we all speak?
When it becomes pertinent for you to know what I'm saying, I will speak in common, and I'll look back at the Kobold again, and then back in Draconic.
No, before you say anything, I am going to stop you. I thought you selected me as your leader. You do nothing without me knowing it first.
What languages do you speak?
Well, so far you know I speak Common and Elven, and you could assume that I speak Dwarven.
In Elvish, because I'm fairly certain the Kobold wouldn't know that. I'm speaking in Draconic to try to scare him and make him say something else that maybe he hasn't said already. Truly, it's nothing important. May I continue?
I'm going to look at Quinn and Sven. Do you get the impression he's holding anything back? That he's trying to mislead? That there's any information he hasn't given freely?
The Kobold?
Yes.
No, I'm fairly certain he thinks Sven is his new boss.
Then, in my opinion, it makes more sense that we come up with a plan rather than continue to play games with the thing.
I'm sort of, I'm just holding my tongue and just kind of looking back and forth like,
No, you're quite right. Thomas, he makes a good point. We elected him as the leader.
Though I don't disagree with Thomas's earlier. Well, hold on. Did you make the comment about us not needing him in Common or Draconic? I don't know what I don't know at this point.
Yeah, I think that all would have been Draconic leading.
Okay. Okay, so I would, in that aside, I would have relayed what I told him in Draconic.
Okay.
In Elvish.
I'm just speaking in Common because I'm pretty sure this thing doesn't speak Common. But I'm going to test that. I am going to, not as a yell, but loud enough that he can hear it outside. I'm just going to say, I think we should kill it now and walk away from this. And I'm just gauging its reaction to that.
There would not be a reaction.
Okay, and then I'm going to look at it. It doesn't understand us. So, but that being said, I don't disagree with what Thomas intimidated with. I'm not going to carry this thing on a leash 2 days away. I have a feeling we can find this cave on our own. Sounds like Ava has some idea where it's at least generally. And if this thing loses control once it gets close enough to whatever its master is, I don't want the master creeping close in the middle of the night and this thing suddenly isn't our friend anymore. Did it give any indication of how many numbers are back at this cave?
That's one thing I couldn't get out of it yet. It's very, very stupid. So even concepts like numbers, time, seems to struggle with. It's amazing that it's survived.
Allow me, if I may be permitted.
Just tell it you're going to have it go meet Big Rock. He'll be so happy.
I walk forward to the kobold. Is it still restrained?
Yeah.
I'm going to put my hand on its forehead and tell it in Draconic, I don't need you to tell me anything. Think of what you see when you go home, back to the cave. And I will cast Detect Thoughts.
Okay, what's the save on
that? What time is it?
Probably inching towards midnight or so, but still not quite the next day.
Okay.
There's no save for Serpent's Thoughts.
Yeah, but I imagine he's going further.
Yeah. Why am I? My thing is. Oh. Let's see. It is. Oh, yeah, just wisdom save 15.
Okay. Oh, god damn it. Bean, you throw my dice off the desk. Okay. That would be a failure. Give me exactly what that spell says.
Okay, I can read the thoughts of certain creatures.
As far as the deeper part of it, yeah.
But if you probe deeper, the target must make a wisdom saving throw. If it fails, gain insight into its reasoning, its emotional state, and something that looms large in its mind, something that it loves, that it worries over, loves, or hates.
Okay. So as you even just like approach
and questions verbally directed at the target creature naturally shape the course of its thoughts, so the spell is particularly effective as an interrogation.
As you approach, you see his eyes kind of going wide. He's just frantically going in his chair, like thrashing back and forth. As you reach out and actually go to touch him, even babbling over your own speech, you begin hearing him say, "No! No, Father Lord, no!" And then you cast your spell and connect with him.
Yeah.
I would say that you first feel that, like, rapid panic that you can clearly see across his features. There is a moment where you delve deeper and you feel his frail mind kind of giving into your probing, and somewhat potentially expectantly, you are shown or felt the image of yourself standing in front of the blaze, your figure being multiplied in magnitude as his mind has built you up to this demonic, towering demon that was broadcasting the barn into this hellscape behind you, and that is the image that appears to you. You're muted.
So that's not useful to me, so I will tell him to think of his old boss.
I guess, give me a persuasion with disadvantage.
Oh, that's just no 13.
Okay. As you yet again attempt to shift its mindset, relying on your rather heightened intimidation during this moment, you do see him kind of like shrink away from you as you go through it again. Let's see, you feel any better? Oh, he actually succeeds this time, the little rascal. So I guess you would only get surface thoughts at that one. Which would be actually probably slightly less panicked than the first time around.
Well, that's enough of that.
As I assume you pull back from your...
Yeah, if that's all I'm getting from him, that's not helpful.
He would more or less just start babbling, I suppose, being rather open and just spewing stuff forth as the only tool that he has at his disposal right now. He's like,
I guess what I was going for was, if I tell you guys to think of a pink elephant right now, you just thought of a pink elephant. So if all I'm wanting to do is just get a visual on.
So the wording of the spell is what I was going off of, which is the most prominent thing in his mind, which in this current moment, you are literally a fire god bearing down upon him, so it's hard for him to think of anything else.
Okay.
But he would more or less start babbling. He would very quickly begin to just offer up anything that he could possibly think of. There's multiple entrances. I know where it is. There's traps. There's acid. Just fucking going on and on and on about anything that might potentially help.
We should probably write this down. So I'll step away from him.
I don't think I have any paper or any pen.
Got a journal.
There's no one around to complain now, so I'll just look for something in the house.
I think it's probably rather easy to find at least like loose parchment and some sort of writing implement. Probably like a charcoal pencil is probably the best you'd find.
So
Do you have the statistics and stuff, or not statistics, like the numbers for the cave and everything that he would be able to provide us?
As far as giving you all like a number, that's probably something far outside his scope, both because he doesn't fully know the size of the group that came and how many died, and then also not knowing the entirety
Counting isn't a strong suit.
Yeah, so that would be something he's not exactly privy to.
Then yeah, I guess can we get a list of just various traps to expect? Have that copied down.
Okay. He would probably describe them as noise traps. Big Rock, which is partially confusing, as he also has a companion called Big Rock. Give me one moment while I double check something.
Said acid.
And something he calls a trip strip.
Quick question.
Mhm.
Is he one of the kobolds that has like the color shifting happening, or?
Yeah, he would.
Okay.
Do we need anything else from him?
I don't think it's a question of if we need, it's whether we can get. From the sounds of it, he's not a great information source.
Should we kill him then?
No, but it's said that some people, at least in the School of Magic, find their first initial powers through a source of great stress and fear and danger. He might have more to offer if we give him great stress and fear and danger.
Torture is...
I didn't say torture.
Whatever you're thinking is surprisingly unreliable at getting good info, and he's already an unreliable source of information.
How do you know he wasn't the one that killed the family here?
That's not relevant.
It was to her. Motioning.
I don't think
For
she's
the
too worried
smoldering
about it.
corpse.
Oh, were you gesturing to Ava or Lensa?
Or Ava or
No.
Lensa.
To Lensa. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Also, we're being paid to exterminate kobolds, so
well, Bean, I was hoping I could use you to be a guide, but I have a suspicion Ava would probably be happy to do the job.
You say that in Draconic or another language?
Common.
Okay. So he would just stare at you like, but Ava would kind of look around at all of you, kind of aware that the decision isn't like super finite at this point, kind of waiting for a signal.
I'm gonna look to Ava. You said you've tracked them as far as the river, the stream.
Yeah, a little bit beyond, yeah.
How close to the mountains have you gotten?
Recently, not very, but back before the agreement, I've been up and around all of them.
Kind of going through my head the number of kobolds we saw today, and just like, has the weather been pretty stable the time that it hasn't been raining recently or anything like that I can recall?
Yeah, it seems to be fairly temperate. There isn't any huge shifts in one way or the other.
How confident are you that you could follow the trail that these would have left?
Well, without the big one, it's a little less obvious, but I think I would be able.
I'm going to look at the rest of the group. I suspect we can't convince her to stay behind, and I think she's going to be more benefit to us than it will.
No argument about that from me.
Well, I've killed just as many as Brainoon has.
Not even going to acknowledge it. I'm just...
But are we killing this one?
Actually, what I will do is I'm going to smash the thing with my hammer.
It's fucking Gimli and Legolas.
I mean, it's restrained.
Yeah, I would just allow you to do it. Basically.
I'm just rolling to roll the natural 20
Jesus.
because I am that guy right now. Nope, that's the wrong dice. There it is. That's still the wrong dice. Oh, I am using this two-handed, so it is the right dice. That is 19 damage.
As Brandon, you step forward, Bean seems to sense the potential threat coming, and you see his eyes going wide. He's like, I can. And then all of a sudden, your blow just basically turns about 1.5 foot of his body into mist. It just shatters into bone and flesh and gore as the top half of the chair is also sheared off. A bunch of wooden splinters being sent into the spray that goes off of the porch and across the kind of rose bushes that had been tenderly cared for at the edge of the abode. And Bean's corpse is kind of left like frozen in the state it was at his demise. His fingers kind of curled up, his legs kind of splayed as the chair like settles and rocks just a little bit before all the legs kind of set back down with a very light thud.
And as I turn around, putting my hammer back in my back, I'll just look at her and I'm pretty sure that makes us even. And just walk back into the house.
Ava would just kind of like turn around and like kick a fucking pebble off of the porch, like, fucking tie it up, you.
I just sort of, like, I don't make a face, but I just sort of close my eyes for an extended moment and then open them again.
We should probably call it a night.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sven was. Yes, I'll check the master bedroom.
I already checked and I found these, and this one's magical, and as far as I can tell, this is just a ring.
Anything
Awesome.
useful?
I don't know. I haven't had time to really delve into it. I'm not quite certain of the nature of the enchantment on it. It might be hiding something.
So I'll just look at the group. Do we dare stay here, or... I mean, it's late, however... And I'll just look back at the still, I'm assuming, burning barn.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense to go back to Yevaloon, but...
We can camp somewhere on the way.
Well, let's see if we can find a trail.
I could be wrong. It's like 11 or 12 at this point.
It's probably hitting midnight around this point.
Mm-hmm.
Here from the back of the house, from a laying down position already on the pitiful mattress. But there's a mattress. There's a mattress here.
I just imagine at that moment the wind like changing directions and the flames moving more towards the house. I'm open to suggestions, but sounds like we've at least got a couple days journey in front of us. It hasn't exactly been a short day today.
Do you have food? I don't have food.
We have something like food.
Yeah, I'm doing math real quick because I'm not sure I marked down my rations for the time we traveled here.
I got 4.
But I think that was like 3 days, so... I have rations I can share with you. They're not great, but they'll do what needs to be.
Was there nothing edible in the house? I mean, she had to be eating something.
You certainly could poke around, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I get the impression that since all the meals were still on the table, she hadn't been eating.
Well, there might be stores, dry goods,
Right,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
There's a bunch of barbecued beef and pork in the
There's
barn.
also crates and crates of produce in the barn. I guess there's now popcorn in the barn. But what is the
How
group
many
decision?
did,
So how many rations, if we had to convert it to that, would we find by searching through the house?
If you all put the task of kind of looking around the kitchen, kind of seeing what you can find, they're probably not. I wouldn't qualify them as far as lengthy and
Right.
spoilage as rations, but there's some bread you can find and maybe an untapped wheel of cheese. And so overall, I might say 3 days of food that you can kind of scavenge and use.
Like the 3 next days.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all not extraordinary quality, very much mundane, commoner food, but yeah.
Well, I think we find a trail, maybe move for about an hour before we call it a night.
bid you farewell, comfort. I will miss the mattress.
We can take it with us.
No. No, I would have to carry it.
No, I mean, and I've got my disc.
Oh, no thank you, Thomas, honestly. It was as lumpy as the ground is.
I mean, I would like you to be comfortable.
Well, there's a party in town, and if we get this done quickly, we can be back in time for it, yes.
Are you talking about Passover?
He is.
Yeah, whatever you call it, it sounds like a raucous good time.
Yes, we went last year. It's very exciting. I think I still have a little bracelet. But it's Macedonia. It's very exciting. They really do it up. I don't go often.
Well, you can come this time.
Just kind of it's almost stunned a little bit, not quite having thought that far ahead at this point. Kind of reserves yourself of that.
Are you about to adopt an orphan?
Ayla meet Ava.
Oh my.
So you all travel to the creek and beyond and set up camp? Is that the goal?
Well, my thought was we find whatever trail they had left getting here and then follow it an hour or so, just so we've created distance, and whether that's to the creek or not, I don't know.
Okay. So you more or less letting Ava guide?
I will assist. But yeah, she's more familiar with the land.
All right. All right, Nathan. You have advantage. Time to shine. Okay. Okay. So as you all leave the burning wreckage of the homestead that you arrived at, traveling westward through the small gap in the fields, you are, I guess, presented with the, somewhat pleasing sight of 2 kobolds kind of more or less, not strained was the word I'm looking for, stranded in one of the holes in the field. You can see some of their arms kind of sticking out, and they are releasing small whimpers of pain that indicate that they are alive, but not for long. Unless any of you investigate further, Ava would go deal with that and then shoot daggers over at Braynoon, making sure that the count is now back in her favor. But
as I saw Ava going to take care of one, I would firebolt the other.
Okay. But after dealing with the last of the raiding party, she would start leading you all west. It is rather dark and somewhat quiet, except for the still somewhat low rumbling sound of the barn kind of collapsing in on itself and the plumes of smoke kind of drifting up into the air. You would eventually reach the creek that they had passed over, and it's a somewhat obvious point that they kind of chose. The shrubbery on both sides kind of being trampled and pushed to the side as the large group would kind of pass through. So without any sort of hesitation, Ava would lead you all over that and then deeper off into the wilderness. It, again, you know, probably for about an hour or so as the moon is still kind of moving its way across the sky. You would make it far enough that, like, the actual homestead is out of sight. The creek is kind of at the edge of your perception. You would be beginning to ascend the foothills leading up to the mountainside, as she is still fairly confident that she's following the path and would indicate that this is about the time that you told her to stop, so. I guess I will go ahead and move you.
I think we make camp. I will set up my tent, but offer it to Ava.
Okay. There we go, move you guys there. That will work. Are we doing regular watch rotations, gentlemen?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not looking to include Ava in it. She's welcome to, but
She would very readily accept the tent and sleep through the, well, whatever remains of the night. So everyone go ahead and throw me a perception check.
It was a natural one. Well, for me.
I also realized that Ava only requires like 4 hours of sleep, so
14 for Sparkles.
Okay.
17.
18 for Braynoon.
8. I'm distracted.
Jeez. So yeah. Sven, your watch goes relatively uneventful. You begin to enjoy the kind of low, distant sound of the nature of this area. You clearly take note of your lacking stock in your spices or your incense, however Sven refers to them, that itch to open the box and indulge in the contents.
Just double check it, make sure, you know, I didn't get...
There's like
Maybe
a
there's a
small
little bit left
dusting
in
of
there.
it. Yeah, you just kind of like drag your pinky along.
Well, at least she had some fun before, you know. Ugh.
How long did the effects of the incense last?
Well, have we ever clarified that? I don't think we have.
I don't think we did. You know, it's not super debilitating, I guess. Couple
I'd
hours.
like to think she was still happy.
I think Lensa was on a high of her own. She had a hell of a last day. I'll say that much, I suppose. But anyway, Quinn, as it becomes your turn to go on watch, there is even though there isn't some brilliantly what's the word I'm looking for, obvious like road sign of you're now entering the glade, there is that information kind of nagging at the back of your mind that you have now left the council's territory and off into the nomadic pastures. It is just enough to kind of distract your awareness a little bit, as you're almost kind of over-analyzing different noises and sounds and sights that you see, wondering if it is something that might be more trouble to you than anybody else, but you at least stay awake and stay relatively aware of what is going on until your watch concludes. Down to Thomas. As you are... Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm definitely distracted, but...
I'm assuming you guys didn't make a campfire, correct?
I would assume not, especially how late it was.
Thomas, as you are sat in the very rudimentary camp, everybody's slumbering, you hear Ava kind of mumbling a little bit off in her sleep. Mr. Sparkles is kind of just finding various comfortable positions as the watch continues. You keep finding yourself somewhat distracted, your thoughts kind of being far more louder in volume than the actual various creatures about in the dark of the night. There is almost like if you see a bright light flash before your eyes and then you close, and there's still that vague, ghosty silhouette of it kind of imprinted on the back of your eyelids. Every time you go to blink or close your eyes for a moment, you see that like swirling pattern that the barn had produced as it was going up in flame, the various chemicals of the paint kind of mixing and then being shot out into the night above. It is this somewhat transfixing, almost mesmerizing pattern that you almost get addicted to as you kind of blink your eyes and analyze it and then close it and stare into it further. It's this somewhat raw and deep allure that you feel that you can't quite place given the lack of information that you have at your disposal, but it is just the beginnings of an itch, an inkling of something that kind of piques your interest, and being Thomas, you probably note it in the back of your mind to investigate further and see if there is a book on the matter, but that would be more or less what kind of consumes the majority of your watch.
I like to think that when Thomas goes to sleep, he's happy.
All right. Brandon, as you rise for your watch, and we're probably past dawn at this point as you all kind of got a later start on your sleeping, you would find yourself awake with Ava as she is fully rested at this point and is kind of rearing and ready to go. As everyone else is indulging in their last few hours of sleep, she comes and just kind of sits down next to you and has a much more reserved demeanor about her today. The fire and the excitement of combat last night more or less feeding her bloodlust for the time being. And she's analyzing Quinn's bow again, almost kind of like a weapon that someone fusses over too much, like constantly cleaning and reassembling it like a modern soldier might do. She is just, running her finger over it, tucking away any sort of like loose strands of the handle, just, fussing with it almost endlessly. She'll kind of look up at you. Can I kill the big one?
As I typically do during my watch, I've been making notes in my journal, and I don't close it, but I kind of put the quill down for a minute, and I think for a bit. And why do you think you have to?
I've been thinking, and from what I could tell yesterday, the small ones, they don't think for themselves. They do what the big one says, right?
That would seem to be the case.
So, then the ones that would have been sent by the big one. So that's the one I have to get.
And I kind of close my journal and put it away, and I'm actually going to reposition to where we're looking at each other. And I know a little bit about the need for revenge. For vengeance, to pay back those that have taken something from you. And I can tell you from first-hand knowledge, it doesn't take anything away from you.
Kind of looks at you almost like perplexed by your response. There's like a moment of just like absolute confusion, and then slowly kind of her head begins to shake as her expression begins to somber up. I don't think you do understand. I have nothing left. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to go. I don't even have a home anymore. So what is there besides doing this? Am I supposed to go fucking pick flowers and braid my hair, and this is what I am supposed to do?
And if you do what you think you're supposed to do, then what do you do after? What has changed?
I don't did my duty. I don't know. I can't leave it like this. You wouldn't leave it like this.
And I have no intention to. However, what were your plans before all this happened?
Didn't really have any.
So I'll ask again, what's changed? You still have your entire life ahead of you. You still have the ability to do whatever it is you wish to do. Throwing your life away for vengeance is nothing but selfish sacrifice.
Well, maybe what I want to do with my life is stop shit like this.
And I will point at her cloak that she's been wearing. That's what that symbolizes. Now, it's not to say that everyone that wears that cloak wears it to the same level as they should. But that cloak symbolizes protection. That cloak symbolizes safety. It doesn't symbolize vengeance or anger.
You're fucking old.
Well, from your experience so far, it seems everyone's too young, so...
Like, Quinn's reasonable.
And I will kind of tug at my naval jacket. I wear this for the same reason you wear that cloak. This is a memory of a time that I was part of something larger than myself. Something that was important not just to me, but to the world we live in. Why do you wear that cloak?
As you speak further, there, like, a lot of her quippiness kind of becomes a little bit blunted as her eyes aim more downcast and directly at you for a fair amount of the conversation, eventually kind of looking up. I feel like I need to. It was his. He wore it everywhere. I never saw him without it, and leaving it there. Quinn mentioned. Are you really? Can I go to Messidore with you?
If you truly believe there's nothing for you here, there's nothing to say you won't find something in Messidore.
All right.
If nothing else, it's a fresh start.
How about this, old man? Can I kill the big one for protection? And then I can go to Messidore.
You can help us
You're such a
protect
fucking
this.
stick in the mud.
Would you let me finish what I'm going to say, little girl? You can help us. As you've experienced thus far, nothing in battle is guaranteed. I cannot say for certain you will get the killing blow. However, I won't bar you from entering that cave. Assuming you can follow the instructions given to you.
Okay.
And I'm going to put my hand out. I want your word on your father's name and on that cloak you wear.
You're a real piece of shit. And she reaches out to grab your hand. Keep
Doesn't
writing
make
in
me
your
wrong.
fucking diary.
And I will. I'll just go back and...
But a few more, I guess, perhaps maybe actually an hour more would pass. Oh, Jesus. As you all would be aroused from your slumber and, oh my god, my knees won't stop hitting the desk. Awaken for another day. I imagine the goal is to travel further west under, Ava's leadership.
Yeah.
Alright. Quinn, as you, arise and begin moving westward, you would find Ava would occasionally kind of lull backwards at the point that she's walking beside you, and at some point during the morning travel, she kind of, I think I'm going to Messidori with you all.
That's nice.
You know anything about the Green Cloaks?
I'm not an expert.
Does someone else know more?
Most assuredly, but I can tell you that it's important, dangerous work with a lot of rules.
Are they, alright? Or are they pieces of shit like Braynoon?
You're gonna find that everywhere you go, there's both. There's no group of people that probably doesn't have at least one of each.
Well, I guess I can see when I get there. Where do you all sleep?
Do you mean in the city?
Yes, I don't have any money.
We have a guild hall with a bunk room. There's no privacy, but you can crash on my bunk and I'll make some other arrangements.
My hero. Alright. So as you all kind of lull into the routine of traveling, a little bit of reprieve from the combat of the previous night and all of the kind of adrenaline dump that caused, you grow closer and closer to the mountains as the sun goes higher and higher into the sky. You were by no means into the actual kind of rocky terrain that signifies the rather large range that extends down towards the southern part of the continent. But Ava begins to almost kind of gesture and notify you all of kind of larger landmarks that she's more or less aiming for, as she's also tracking the trail that she has found of the Kobold group. She has, at a few different places, mentioned that bigger strands or breaking off pathways have kind of come and gone with this bigger group, looking like some have split off and maybe returned, or they had accumulated more along the way. But it is not just a single large path, it is more like a slowly trickling river, getting more and more streams added to it, but following the biggest one, assuming that is the more prominent one to follow. There is eventually, amongst the jagged peaks kind of towering in front of you all, there is maybe 3 or 4 smaller mountains leading up to one that stands tall enough to actually point at and recognize, and she would indicate that those 3 mountains kind of clustered together, there is a valley, or more or less a dip, not an actual like full-on valley between the 3 of them, that leads down into a large opening, which is where she knows the cave is opened up into and her access to it. Though she would almost kind of guess or try to remember that in her time in these caves, there was airflow coming from different directions, so there's probably more entrances, as I imagine you all would have mentioned that the Kobold mentioned that at some point as well, but she only does know of one of them, and that is where she is more or less aiming. No more input or alterations from there?
I think it's the best bit of information we've got at the moment.
All right. So, another day of travel. It would be, again, pretty peaceful without any sort of prodding or things that cause alarm. Yes?
Did we have anything broken?
What do you mean?
In case anything got damaged, I did prepare mending real quick in case we needed any repairs. The level of realism on certain things, I think, is going to catch me in the ass. So I'm going to check on that right now.
She said that apparently there's something wrong with my bow, so you could hit that with one.
Okay. As you all continue westward throughout the day, the sun begins to start its descent down towards the horizon as you all are feeling the aches and pains of kind of steadily ascending up the ridgeline. It is become more and more arduous the deeper and deeper you get closer to the mountains, but it is still more or less kind of rolling hills, but there's a lot more like nooks and crannies and small divots to kind of hide in. But as the sun finally says its final farewells. Wow, that was way more poetic than it had to be. It would be the night of the 5th as you all make camp yet again. Ava would again try to guess the best of her ability going off of rather old knowledge and what you all have kind of gleaned, that it's maybe 2 or 3 more hours of traveling the next day to get there. So that is the information you'll have to work with.
As we make camp, I'd like to just kind of go over what information we know of kobolds. Like, we know they're primarily nocturnal, so odds are more likely to be sleeping during the day, or at least less active. But I don't know. It's one of those, I know what I know, but I don't know what information's been shared with Braynoon. So, like, any details that our more learned members might have would be great. Especially on this potential guard Drake-esque thing that also has mind control.
I would imagine Ben being Dragonkind and Thomas being a nerd. You both could give me history with advantage if you'd like.
A 20 and a 1.
All right.
It's been a night for rolls.
What's the total you have?
Oh, history, so that's a 27.
Okay. Sven?
18.
Okay. So yeah, I think we've mentioned a fair amount of this before, but I'll just kind of throw things out and you can always delve a little bit deeper if need be. But kobolds are sensitive to sunlight. That is why they either kind of come out at night, attack at night, or function at night, or live in their caves. They also adapt to whatever larger creature or being they serve, so this could make them be more of a reddish kobold that may be resistant to fire, or the whole color spectrum applying. You all had found that the kobolds were a mix of red and black. Whether or not that was transferring to black or transferring to red was left unclear, but that is the knowledge that you had grabbed. Groupings of kobolds can vary rather drastically. It's very unlikely to find them in a group smaller than like 10. Their advantage is certainly in numbers, and usually the stronger the being they serve, the more kobolds there are to kind of protect it or serve it. So far, you guys have seen, 20 plus, which is a sizable number, which could be the full cluster, but it's probably safe to assume that whatever being is in charge didn't send out its full force. So there might be that same amount or more in the place that you were going into, but at least the numbers have been thinned. The guard drake-esque being that you all have seen images of and a little bit of remnants of in its footsteps. It not having a tail is strange. Most draconic individuals having that, especially the more bestial races or species. So that is something of significance. 6 legs is also somewhat odd, but could potentially just be a adaptation that it is made to fit its environment. The beast itself also appeared to be a mixture of colors, but that very easily could have been some discrepancy in Ava's memory. But it did appear mostly black in appearance, which is something. I think that's all the really big, broader strokes. Was there anything more that was not answered?
I mean, specific tactics like, you know, do these kobolds have pack tactics or anything like that?
But yeah, so like as far as mechanics, you would know that pack tactics is a thing. They very much like to swarm and kind of use their numbers. Their general like habitat that they form is very much a like defensible position. Their main goal in life is to hoard wealth, accumulate wealth, and then bring it back to the one that they serve. So then guarding that wealth is a very big role for them as well. So traps, lookouts, defensible positions, barricades, all of that stuff is fairly common. They aren't incredible craftsmen by any mean, but they are crafty, and they are sometimes quite clever, though obviously also pretty stupid sometimes. So it's a mixture. So yeah, that'd be, I guess, a little bit more information that you could lean on.
Would there be, given the information we got from Bean about acid, is there any assumptions we could pull from that?
They got those bombs.
Yeah, so going off of what Bean mentioned and the different images that you've seen and the kobolds that you fought and the weapons that they wielded, it's fairly safe to assume that the big one probably either produces, uses, is resistant, or lives in some sort of acid or surrounding it. The fact that they have it as an actual implement to use on others is a showcase that it's probably a bit more there than just a passing thought. Yeah, and also the black draconic individuals would be the ones that delve and live in those kind of environments.
Okay, just make sure we have as much information as we can.
Well, is there anything between camping out this night and picking back up in the morning that you all want to get through?
I haven't reflected on what happened during my watch. Is there anything that I can recall from any sort of like history study of just general tiefling lore or anything that would have made sense as a
roll me percentile dice.
How do I use portent with percentile?
You don't. I mean, I guess you could, but you would never get above like a 15.
Right, yeah.
$67.
Okay. Spending a fair amount of time just trying to mull over whatever might have occurred. It's honestly even difficult for Thomas to decipher the source within himself. It is clear that even though Thomas isn't super well versed with tieflings and their demeanors and their general lifestyles, which is a weird term to use, he is aware that he is a tiefling and that there are certain stigmas kind of surrounding that. The other large source of ambiguity in Thomas is this gift that he has supposedly been bestowed. It's something that he's never fully nailed down or fully uncovered. It's always been this source of intelligence and insightfulness that he's kind of wielded and leaned on during his studies to excel in the school that he has chosen, but that also is somewhat of a blurry topic when it comes to Thomas's understanding of who he is. So just trying to reflect on what this feeling is coming from is rather difficult, going back and forth between the two unknown sources that could potentially be the cause. Using Thomas's rather like analytical mind, you tried to more or less like eliminate variables, like bouncing back and forth, making this kind of list that you check off as you are digging down towards whatever this source might come from. At the end of your watch, and to the best of Thomas's ability, there is some sort of very subtle greed and passion kind of itching at the bottom of your soul that you're not quite used to. And it's never been something that is stemmed from your gift before. So at this moment, Thomas's best guess is that some sort of strange, lingering, infernal nature has now budded in his soul or in his heart, which is potentially troubling.
Okay. You'll file that away, thank you.
Okay. Well, anything else before the morning? Alright. So, being a couple hours away from the entrance that Ava has alluded to, she would happily lead you all down that path, or up that path, I suppose. Are there any particular things to mention in your approach, or how you all are handling the situation?
As we're going up, I am like, so this is the entrance she is aware of. Are there any signs that there has been movement of kobolds or anything else leading to this entrance, or is this perhaps an entrance they haven't been using, or?
So the actual like terrain that you are moving up, it's a somewhat naturally formed like shelf on the edge of a rather sloped mountainside. It very much meanders along the elevation that it is kind of formed at, but eventually you reach where another mountain kind of collides and there's a small ridge line. And when you reach the ridge line, you're now looking down into where three of them all converge into this kind of pit, more or less. And once you reach there, which is about maybe 2 hours of travel, you can see just from the entrance at a fairly far distance at this point, maybe 300-400 feet down to where it actually is, there's the dark hole of the cave that you can't quite see too far into as it very quickly kind of changes direction and goes down into the rock. Surrounding the entrance is bits of scrap wood, bones, skeletons, rock, debris, bundles of hay, broken crates, this collection of just kind of discarded trash or leftovers that have been shoved into piles and kind of put to the side, that all kind of surround the entrance except for a very clear, maybe like 10-15 foot wide path that you assume is where they go in and out of actively.
Sorry, realized I hadn't been marking off rations for 2 people for the last 2 days. Okay, so...
Quick question on that one. I thought we got enough food to last those couple of days.
No, it was 3 singular rations. That makes
Right,
sense.
it was one person 3 days.
Mhm.
And so unless we gave that to Ava to eat, then...
Yeah, I would assume that we give that to her to get here.
Okay.
We can kind of figure it out on the way back.
No, not 28.
But
There we go.
as you all are staring down at the entrance, Ava kind of looks to all of you, like very much like a child looking to the adults. And do we just go in?
I'm gonna look at Quinlan, I think we all get to the entrance. I'd like you to scout ahead. Not too far, but, 50 feet or so at a time to make sure it's clear.
I was hoping
From what we know, they shouldn't be that active right now. Though we don't know about the big one. So I think slow and steady is the answer here. And then I'm going to look at Ava. You are to stay behind us, provide any covering fire if we get into combat. You are never in front of me.
What if you're dead?
Then you're never in front of me.
Well, you won't know, but alright.
I have your word.
Quinn, let's get
And
you
I'll-
down there.
And I'll look at the rest of them and say, she has given me her word. And then, yeah,
a lot of
we'll-
words.
I've got the ones that are important.
I want to back him up because I feel like I get it, and so I give her this look of like, wow, that's important.
Sometimes, Ava, I find it's easier just to agree with him.
Kind of looks over at Sven, just like hoping.
What I'm.
What are we talking about?
No, if it helps, I can just put her to sleep and get her out. It's fine.
All right. I'll behave.
So yeah, I think we all get to the entrance and then
Alright.
creep forward.
So, Quinn, as I assume you kind of take up the leading position and you all begin to control your descent down into this little canyon, you would, as you grow closer, again, maybe perhaps 100 or so feet away from the entrance of the cave, begin to hear the inklings of activity, very distant echoes of shifting or scratching or just some piece of wood kind of clattering with another. Nothing major and very obviously pretty sparse. It's not like an entire colony is kind of active just around the corner, but it's something at least to indicate that there is potential foes ahead. And as you all gain your way to the entrance and Quinn puts in a observant ear, we will end the session there.